Alarms blare across the Galactic Concorde's border outpost as sensors detect what appears to be a technological impossibility. A vessel with primitive hull materials, yet emitting energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Commander Xilvan orders immediate interception, expecting to find another Ravager trick. Instead, visual contact reveals a vessel of brutal practical design bearing the designation U.S. Paradox and a strange blue and white emblem. When the communications officer finally decrypts their transmission, the bridge falls silent at the impossible. This is Captain Eliza Chen of Earth's United Nations Space Command. We come seeking diplomatic relations. Humans, a species the Concorde had marked for potential contact in 300 years, had somehow built an interstellar warship that bypassed every detection grid along the way. Most disturbing of all, the ship's engine signature indicated it had traveled faster than the Concorde's fastest vessels, using technology that, according to their science, should have torn itself apart. Impossible, mutters Xilvan, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting through shades of disbelief. Request visual confirmation of the crew. The main view screen flickers to life, revealing a command bridge that makes the Concorde officers recoil in aesthetic horror. Where Concorde vessels feature sleek, minimalist designs with neural interfaces and holographic controls, the human bridge is a cacophony of physical switches, manual backup systems, and what appears to be, most shocking of all, actual printed emergency procedure manuals. Standing center screen is Captain Chen, a medium-built human female with close-cropped black hair and the confident posture of someone who has expected this moment. "Greetings, Commander," she says, having correctly identified Xilvan's rank insignia, despite never having encountered his species before. "We apologize for the unexpected arrival. Our theoretical models suggested this approach vector would minimize disruption to your border security systems." The xenolinguist aboard the Concorde vessel gasps. "They decoded our language from passive transmissions alone. That should be impossible." "Yes, we're establishing a pattern," Xilvan interrupts, turning to his science officer. "Scan their vessel again. There must be some explanation." The science officer, a Tavrizian with multiple ocular appendages, manipulates her console with practiced precision. "Commander, preliminary scans indicate their hull is primarily composed of titanium alloys with carbon composite reinforcement. Their propulsion system appears to utilize controlled fusion, but with some form of exotic matter containment we cannot identify. Most puzzling is their power distribution network, which employs principles that contradict established physical models. Stolen technology, suggests the security chief, a reptilian Draz whose species' natural paranoia had earned them their position. Captain Chen smiles on the view screen, apparently having overheard. "I assure you, Commander, everything aboard the Paradox is of human design. Unorthodox by your standards, perhaps, but entirely our own. We've been monitoring your communications for decades and determined it was time to introduce ourselves properly." Xilvan feels a cold sensation through his exoskeleton. The human admission of long-term surveillance makes the Concorde's sophisticated border security seem suddenly inadequate. More disturbing is the implication. If humans had been watching, what else had they learned? And what other technological impossibilities might they have achieved? "Captain Chen," he says finally, protocol reasserting itself. "On behalf of the Galactic Concorde, I must request that your vessel power down and prepare for boarding and inspection. Your arrival has triggered multiple security protocols." Chen nods, unsurprised. "We anticipated as much, Commander. The Paradox will comply with all reasonable security measures. We have nothing to hide, though I suspect you may have difficulty understanding what you find aboard our ship." As the transmission ends, Commander Xilvan turns to his first officer and says quietly, "Contact High Command immediately, and alert the Science Directorate. We may have just encountered something that will rewrite our understanding of technological development among pre-FTL civilizations." "Or," adds the security chief darkly, the greatest security threat the Concorde has ever faced. High Engineer Kistvol steps through the airlock onto the Paradox, his six-limbed body tensed with professional suspicion. Behind him, 5 specialists from various scientific disciplines follow, each carrying advanced scanning equipment. A junior diplomatic attaché, added as an afterthought, brings up the rear. "Welcome aboard," says Lieutenant Commander Sarah Rodriguez, the Paradox's chief engineer. She stands with an honor guard of 4 human officers, all wearing the same navy blue uniforms with silver insignia. Captain Chen sends her apologies. She's preparing for your council meeting. I'll be conducting your tour. Kistvol's translator renders her words perfectly, suspiciously so. Your language adaptation is remarkably efficient, he notes, watching her reaction carefully. Rodriguez shrugs. We've had your entertainment broadcasts for decades. The Universal Translator was a side project for our linguistics division. She gestures down the corridor. Shall we begin with the power plant? I understand it's of particular interest. The inspection team moves through corridors that seem unnecessarily wide by Concorde standards. When Kistvol mentions this, Rodriguez explains casually, damage control and emergency response. If sections are compromised, we need room to move equipment or evacuate personnel. You design assuming failure, observes the Tavrijan materials specialist, her tone suggesting this approach is primitive. We design assuming reality, counters Rodriguez. Everything fails eventually. The question is how gracefully and whether you've prepared for it. The reactor chamber door hisses open to reveal what appears to be scientific heresy. Where Concorde vessels use carefully regulated antimatter containment fields, the Paradox's heart is a swirling vortex of plasma surrounding a crystalline structure that seems to bend light around itself. Impossible, gasps Kistvol, his scanning equipment going haywire. You're generating microsingularities at the reactor core. Rodriguez nods calmly. Controlled quantum pinch effect. We harvest energy from the event horizon fluctuations. But that approach was abandoned centuries ago, protests the Concorde physicist. The Nelvorian equations prove conclusively that such systems are inherently unstable beyond 43.6 seconds of operation. Rodriguez taps a display, bringing up the reactor's operational log. We've been running continuously for 19 months, 7 days, and 13 hours. Perhaps your equations need revision. The diplomatic attaché, a young Brel named UV, touches the control panel and jumps back as the interface suddenly morphs, reconfiguring from flat touch panels to raised shapes more suitable for Brel appendages. Adaptive interface, Rodriguez explains. The system scans new users and reconfigures to their physiological needs. Your computer anticipates users it's never encountered before. UV asks incredulously. We call it design flexibility, Rodriguez says. After all, we always hope to meet new friends out here. The inspection continues through engineering sections that violate fundamental design principles of Concorde shipbuilding. Power conduits run parallel to coolant systems, a configuration that should create dangerous interference patterns. Backup systems seem deliberately misaligned with primaries. Most baffling of all, some components appear to be mechanical rather than gravitic or quantum-based. In the weapons control center, Kistvol finally loses his professional composure. These targeting systems are analog, and your primary energy weapons are modular rather than integrated. This entire ship is a collection of engineering compromises. Rodriguez's expression remains pleasant, but takes on a hint of steel. Engineer Kistvol. Earth has 193 nations, each with different approaches to science and technology. The Paradox represents our greatest achievement, not because we found perfect solutions, but because we found ways to make imperfect solutions work together. Your Concorde has one technological path it considers correct. We have hundreds, all competing and collaborating simultaneously. She activates a holographic display showing 20 more vessels under construction in Earth orbit, and each of these ships incorporates different experimental systems based on competing theories. They'd all work. They're all different. And that, Engineer Kistval, is why we're here centuries before your models predicted. We iterate faster than you innovate. The inspection team falls silent, the implications settling over them like a shadow. The humans hadn't just achieved interstellar travel ahead of schedule. They'd done it by breaking rules the Concord didn't even realize were breakable. The grand chamber of the Concord Council stretches a kilometer across, its vaulted ceiling adorned with astronomical charts of member worlds. 13 primary counselors, representatives of the founding species, occupy a raised semicircle, while delegates from 47 associate members fill tiered seating beyond. Captain Chen stands at the center of the chamber, her small human delegation dwarfed by the architectural grandeur designed to intimidate petitioners. Supreme Counselor Tizara rises, her crystalline body refracting light in hypnotic patterns. Standing 12 feet tall, she towers over the human captain. The inspection report has been reviewed, Tizara announces, her voice resonating through the chamber without apparent amplification. Your vessel employs methodologies deemed hazardous by Concord safety protocols. Your approach to dimensional physics contradicts established models. Your presence here violates 17 regulations regarding first contact procedures. Murmurs of agreement ripple through the chamber. Chen remains motionless, waiting. Furthermore, continues Tizara, analysis of your communication systems indicates you have been monitoring Concord transmissions for approximately 73 standard cycles. This constitutes a significant security breach. With respect, Counselor, Chen responds, her voice steady. We monitored only what you broadcast. You projected your culture across the stars. We listened. Security Minister Dravenok, a massive reptilian with scarred facial ridges, leans forward and built weapons based on what you heard. We built defenses, Chen corrects. The Paradox is primarily an exploratory vessel with defensive capabilities. Laughter, or its multi-species equivalent, ripples through the chamber. Your exploratory vessel carries enough firepower to neutralize a small fleet, counters Dravenok. The vote has been taken. Tizara interrupts. By a margin of 9-4, the primary council has determined that humanity represents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Your species will be quarantined to your home system, pending further evaluation in approximately 300 cycles. Silence falls as the pronouncement settles. The diplomatic attaches behind Chen shift nervously, but the captain herself shows no reaction. And if we disagree with your assessment, she asks quietly. Dravenok's scales flush with warning coloration. Your disagreement is irrelevant. Concord automated defense systems are being programmed to prevent human vessels from leaving your solar system as we speak. Chen takes a single step forward, a breach of protocol that causes several counselors to flinch. Test us, she challenges, her voice suddenly filling the chamber as if she commanded Tizara's natural amplification. You've deemed us dangerous based on preconceptions rather than evidence. Put those preconceptions to the test. Tizara's crystalline form darkens, explaining. Issue a challenge. Set trials that would prove our worthiness, or confirm your fears. Let the results speak for themselves. The council chamber erupts in overlapping conversations as the delegates debate among themselves. Tizara raises a limb for silence. What would you propose, Captain Chen? Your choice, Counselor. Your most difficult trials. The ones no emerging species has ever completed. Dravenok's mouth splits in what might be a smile. The human has courage, if not wisdom. I propose the triumvirate trials. Gasps echo through the chamber. Even Tizara seems taken aback. Minister, the triumvirate trials have not been invoked in 7,000 cycles. No species has ever. Precisely, interrupts Dravenok. If the humans wish to prove themselves, let them face what none have overcome. After heated deliberation among the primary council, Tizara announces their decision. The human vessel Paradox will face 3 trials. First, cross the void gap without support, a journey that has stranded advanced ships for decades. Second, survive combat simulation against our Phantom Squadron, who remain undefeated in 9 centuries of service. Finally, endure 5 minutes of direct bombardment from our dreadnought Eternal Judgment without returning fire or evasive action. Ken consults briefly with her officers before responding. We accept your terms. When do we begin? The trials commence in 48 hours, replies Tizara. This should give you adequate time to request assistance from your homeworld, though I doubt even your combined technological knowledge cold. We'll need 12 hours, Chen interrupts. The paradox requires minor recalibrations for these specific challenges. Stunned silence greets this declaration until Dravnok breaks it with a barking sound that his translator doesn't convert. You expect us to believe your vessel, which you claim was not designed for these trials, can be prepared in half a day. Chen smiles for the first time since entering the chamber. Minister, the reason human technology confuses you is that we don't design for specific problems. We design for adaptability to unknown problems. The paradox was built to face challenges we couldn't predict. These trials are simply another set of variables to accommodate. As the human delegation exits, Yuvi, the young Brel diplomatic attaché who observed the inspection, whispers to a colleague, either these humans are the most brilliant species we've ever encountered, or they're bluffing on a scale I cannot comprehend. The void gap looms ahead, a churning maelstrom of dark energy that stretches across 15 light-years of space. Through the observation deck's viewport, it appears as a massive distortion, where stars seem to smear and blur into nothingness. The paradox hovers at the threshold, flanked by 2 Concorde escort vessels. Admiral Vix, commander of the escort cruiser Indomitable Will, establishes a final communication. His elongated facial features betray no emotion, but the slight flutter of his neck membranes reveals concern. Captain Chen, I am obligated to inform you that the Void Gap has claimed 3,419 vessels in recorded history. Those few that survived required rescue after systems failure and emergency protocols. The shortest crossing took 16 standard cycles. Chen nods respectfully. Thank you for your concern, Admiral. Our calculations suggest a somewhat shorter journey. Your confidence borders on delusion. Vex responds. The gap drains energy from all known power systems. Even with maximum reserves, you'll be operating on emergency power within hours. Perhaps, Chen replies enigmatically. We'll see you on the other side. Aboard the Paradox's bridge, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez completes the final preparations. All systems reconfigured, Captain. The hull absorption matrices are operating at 94% efficiency. Not perfect, but the best we can do without a space dock. It'll have to be enough, Chen replies, settling into the command chair. Navigation. Plot our course. Directly through the center. The navigation officer hesitates. The center, Captain. The energy drain effect is exponentially stronger there. Exactly, Chen confirms. That's where we'll find the highest concentration of particles we need. Helm, ahead full. The Paradox accelerates into the gap, its engines flaring against the darkening backdrop. On the Concorde observation vessel, alien scientists monitor the human ship's approach, instruments recording every fluctuation. Energy levels dropping as expected, reports a sensor technician. Their primary systems are showing power reduction consistent with gap exposure. Estimate total systems failure in approximately 7 hours. Admiral Vix nods. At least they'll survive, even if they'll be stranded for weeks. Prepare long-range monitoring and... Sir, interrupts the technician. Something's happening. Their power signature. It's stabilizing. On the main display, the Paradox's energy readings fluctuate wildly before settling at 60% of normal operation, far above the critical threshold that would trigger emergency protocols. Impossible, mutters Vix. Nothing operates at that capacity in the gap. The impossible becomes even more baffling when, 3 hours later, the Paradox's energy signature begins to increase. Aboard the human vessel, the mood shifts from tense concentration to cautious optimism. Captain, the absorption matrices are now operating at 187% of rated capacity, reports Rodriguez. We're harvesting more energy than our systems can currently store. Chen smiles. Just as we hoped. Divert excess power to the dimensional drive. Let's see what this ship can really do. The paradox suddenly accelerates, its velocity climbing far beyond what should be possible in the energy-draining environment of the gap. The ship's hull takes on a strange luminescence, glowing with accumulated energy that seems to ripple along its surface. On the observation vessel, chaos erupts as instruments register the impossible. They're accelerating, currently at 327% of their previous maximum velocity, shouts the technician. And their energy signature. It's off the scale. Vic stares at the readouts in disbelief. What are we seeing? The senior physicist, a Medusan with tendrils of neural tissue floating in a preservation field, offers the only explanation that makes sense. They're not fighting the gap's energy drain. They're feeding on it. Those decorative hull patterns we noted. They must be some form of collection array designed specifically to absorb the gap's ambient radiation and convert it to usable power. That's theoretically impossible, protests Vix. The gap's radiation is inherently chaotic and destructive to organized systems. Apparently, replies the physicist dryly. The humans didn't read that particular theory. 74 hours later, a flash of energy at the far side of the gap announces the paradox's emergence. The ship's exterior glows with accumulated energy, systems operating at peak capacity despite the journey. When the Concorde escort vessels finally catch up, having taken the longer, safer route around the gap's perimeter, they find Captain Chen calmly waiting. 3 days, 5 hours, 17 minutes, she announces over the comm. A new record, I believe. Shall we proceed to the second trial? Data transmitted from the paradox to the Concorde vessels reveals the truth. The human ship hadn't merely survived the gap. It had thrived there, using the very forces that should have destroyed it as an unprecedented power source. The information cascades through Concorde scientific networks, triggering the first major paradigm shift in theoretical physics in over 2 centuries. The combat simulation arena encompasses a 100-kilometer sphere of cleared space near the Concorde military headquarters. Automated sensor buoys mark its boundaries, ready to record every moment of the upcoming confrontation. In the observation hub, dignitaries and military officials crowd viewing platforms, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Commander Ixnera performs final pre-flight checks on her interceptor, the sleek vessel humming with perfectly calibrated systems. As squadron leader of the legendary Phantom Squadron, she has personally defeated 16 different alien vessels in similar trials. None had presented a real challenge in decades. Team channel secure, she announces to her wingmates. Keep formation tight until we've assessed their capabilities. Verdani, take high approach. Jet, swing wide on the ecliptic. I'll engage directly to draw their focus. Understood, Commander, responds Verdani, her vessel already drifting into position. Tactical assessment of the human ship. Primitive targeting systems, sluggish maneuverability, excessive weapons with poor distribution. Ixnera replies dismissively. Their only advantage is durability. Wear them down, target propulsion nodes, and avoid direct fire exchanges. Standard protocol for technologically inferior opponents. The ceremonial signal flashes across all channels, and the simulation begins. The paradox hangs motionless as the 3 Phantom interceptors surge forward in perfect formation, their drives leaving trails of ionized particles. On the human vessel's bridge, Lieutenant Commander Jackson, tactical officer, watches their approach with studied calm. Textbook pincer formation, Captain. They're setting up for a standard superiority engagement. Chen nods. Let's change the parameters. Initiate Sunflower Protocol. Throughout the paradox, crew members secure themselves as warning indicators shift from green to amber. The ship's external configuration begins to change, panels sliding to reveal hidden ports, while others lock down completely. On the Phantom Squadron's tactical displays, the human ship suddenly vanishes. Sensor malfunction, reports Jet, his four-fingered hands dancing across controls. Recalibrating now. Negative. Counters Ixnera as her own instruments flicker. They've deployed some form of countermeasure. Switching to particle detection. The mystery resolves itself moments later as the Paradox vents massive clouds of superheated plasma from multiple ports simultaneously, creating an expanding, sensor-jamming cloud. When visibility returns, the human vessel has vanished. Impossible, mutters Ixnera. No ship that size cold. The warning comes too late as the Paradox reappears directly behind Verdani's interceptor, having somehow crossed the entire arena in seconds. Before the Phantom pilot can evade, magnetic grapples launch from the human ship, latching onto the interceptor's hull. "What is this?" demands Verdani in confusion. "They're not firing." Her question answers itself as electrical current surges through the grapples, temporarily overloading her ship's systems. In simulation terms, a disabling rather than destroying blow. Ixnera and Jet immediately converge on the Paradox, weapons charge. Their precision fire strikes the human vessel directly, only for the impacts to trigger an unexpected reaction. The Paradox fires its point defense weapons directly at its own hull, the kinetic recoil providing a burst of lateral momentum that sends it spinning between the two interceptors on an impossible vector. In the observation hub, Engineer Castevall stares in bewilderment. They're using weapon recoil as propulsion. That's not aerodynamically viable. It doesn't need to be in space, comments a human observer quietly. The battle shifts into chaos as the Paradox continues to defy conventional tactics. When cornered, it ejects what appear to be debris chunks that suddenly activate as autonomous mini-drones, harassing the Phantom interceptors with unpredictable movements. When targeted with precision weapons, the vessel rotates damaged sections into the line of fire, sacrificing already compromised systems rather than exposing intact ones. Most shocking of all, the Paradox begins physically reconfiguring itself mid-battle, weapon mounts shifting position, hull plates retracting to reveal hidden thrusters, and entire sections changing orientation to present smaller targeting profiles. "This isn't a ship," gasps Ixnera as her wingmate's simulation ends in destruction. "It's a transformer." When the final Phantom interceptor falls to the unorthodox human tactics, the simulation ends. The Paradox floats triumphant but heavily damaged, nearly half its systems offline or compromised. During the debriefing, a humiliated Ixnera confronts Lieutenant Commander Jackson. "Your victory was luck. Your ship is crippled." "Damaged," Jackson corrects with unexpected cheerfulness. "Not crippled." There's a critical difference in how we approach combat. He activates a schematic display, highlighting various systems. Every component on our ship has a secondary function if the primary fails. Those aren't just cooling vents. They're smoke screens when ruptured. Those panels aren't merely armor. They're directional deflectors when blown outward. We don't try to build systems that can't fail. We build systems that fail in ways we can weaponize. Commander Ixnera's expression shifts from contempt to dawning comprehension. You intentionally design components to be useful even in failure. Exactly, Jackson confirms. In Concorde ship design, system failure is the end. In human design, it's just another tactical option. The dreadnought Eternal Judgment dominates space like a metallic leviathan, 8 kilometers of gleaming superalloy bristling with weapon systems. Beside it, the Paradox seems insignificant, a minnow before a whale. Repair crews had worked frantically after the combat trial, but nearly 30% of the human vessel's systems remained offline or operating at reduced capacity. In the observation lounge of the Concorde diplomatic vessel, dignitaries, scientists, and military officials gather. The atmosphere is subdued. Most assume they're about to witness the destruction of the human vessel, regardless of its previous successes. Admiral Skatar, commander of the Eternal Judgment, addresses the assembled observers. The parameters are simple. The human vessel will remain stationary while enduring 5 minutes of progressive bombardment. They may not return fire or attempt evasive maneuvers. His lipless mouth curls slightly. For the record, I've ordered minimal initial power settings out of respect for their previous achievements. High Engineer Kistval studies the readouts of the Paradox's current status. Their outer hull is still compromised in 17 locations from the combat trial. Power fluctuations indicate their main reactor is operating at only 81% efficiency. By all measurable standards, they cannot survive this. The young Brel diplomat, UV, who had been present since the initial inspection, flutters his sensory appendages nervously. Yet they've defied measurable standards twice already. On the Paradox's bridge, Captain Chen stands calmly, her crew at battle stations despite the prohibition against returning fire. All hands, this is the captain. Secure for survival protocol Omega. Throughout the ship, crew members activate specialized harnesses at their stations. Bulkheads seal automatically, dividing the vessel into isolated compartments. In engineering, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez oversees the activation of systems that had remained dormant until now. Particle collection grid online. Metamaterial lattice energized. Phase quantum buffers at standby. Chen acknowledges the reports with a nod. Remind me to thank the Ganymede team when we get home. Their theoretical work is about to get very practical. The countdown begins. On the Eternal Judgment's command deck, Admiral Skatar gives the order. Commence bombardment. Initial power at 5%. The first salvo. A concentrated beam of particles accelerated to near-light speed strikes the Paradox directly amidships. On the observation vessel, viewers flinch collectively, expecting to see the human ship shatter. Instead, an extraordinary phenomenon occurs. The Paradox's hull begins to glow with increasing intensity, the energy of the impact spreading across its surface in geometric patterns rather than creating a conventional explosion. Fascinating, murmurs the Concorde senior physicist. The energy is being distributed across their hull rather than penetrating it. The second salvo, particle beams capable of slicing through battleship armor, seems to bend around the vessel, creating a prismatic effect as they're refracted in multiple directions. Admiral Skatar stares at his tactical display in disbelief. Increase to 20% power. Target their primary reactor housing. The intensified attack causes visible damage. The Paradox's outer hull layers begin to slow off, vaporizing under the assault. Yet beneath, observers are shocked to see a honeycombed structure that pulses with energy, absorbing and channeling the incoming bombardment. When kinetic projectiles impact, they penetrate, but each hole immediately self-seals with a metallic liquid that hardens instantly. By minute 4, frustration drives Admiral Skatar to extreme measures. Full power to all forward batteries. Target their command center. The Eternal Judgment unleashes its full arsenal, enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. The Paradox is clearly suffering now. Sections of its hull completely gone, internal systems exposed to space. Yet the core of the vessel remains intact as strange geometric patterns of energy dance across what remains of its surface. When the 5 minutes end, silence falls over the observation lounge. The Paradox still exists. Crippled, bleeding atmosphere from multiple breaches, but intact where it matters most. Engineer Kistval finally understands what he's witnessing. Their armor doesn't just resist energy, he explains in awe. It harvests it. Those patterns we saw, they're channeling pathways, distributing the incoming energy across the ship's systems, rather than allowing it to concentrate destructively. The lead Concorde weapons designer shakes his head. We abandoned that approach centuries ago. Our simulations showed that energy-absorbing armor inevitably fails catastrophically when overloaded. That's why it worked, replies Kistval, excitement overriding protocol. Look at the scans. Their armor isn't a single system. It's thousands of independent cells. When one section overloads, it doesn't cascade to others. It fails independently, sacrificing itself to preserve the whole. The revelation spreads through the observation lounge. The humans hadn't built better armor. They'd built armor that failed better. The eternal judgment had been essentially feeding power to the Paradox's systems with every shot, even as it destroyed outer sections. Communications from the human vessel confirm they're battered but operational. As emergency repair teams deploy, Supreme Counselor Tizara turns to her advisors, her crystalline form clouded with conflicting emotions. "The triumvirate trials are complete," she announces. "For the first time in our history, all three have been passed. We must reconsider everything we thought we knew about technological development, and about this species called humanity." The Grand Council chamber, so recently the site of humanity's challenge, now buzzes with unprecedented activity. Representatives from dozens of Concord species crowd the viewing galleries as the primary council convenes an emergency session. At the center stands Captain Chen, her uniform bearing the scorch marks and hasty repairs that testify to the Paradox's trials. Supreme Counselor Tizara addresses the assembly, her crystalline form glowing with formal illumination patterns. For the first time in 7,000 cycles, the triumvirate trials have been completed successfully. As bound by ancient protocol, the Concord must now recognize humanity as. The chamber's emergency alert system interrupts her, bathing the vast space in pulsing red light. A tactical officer rushes to Tizara's side, whispering urgently. The crystalline being's illumination dims to a troubled gray. "This session must be temporarily adjourned," she announces. "A security matter requires immediate." Ravager fleet detected at the Helios Gateway. The panicked voice of a controller overrides the chamber's communication system. 15 capital ships and support vessels breaching the outer defense perimeter. The chamber descends into chaos. Species with evolutionary fear responses display them openly. Bristling appendages, released pheromones, defensive coloration changes. Captain Chen watches as the powerful Concord leadership suddenly resembles nothing so much as frightened children. Minister Dravnak steps forward. Security forces forming around the council members. Evacuation protocols are now active. All non-essential personnel must proceed to designated shelters. "What are Ravagers?" Chen asks sharply, noting the terror the name evokes. Dravnak's scales flush with stress coloration. A nomadic predator species with technology centuries beyond even our most advanced systems. They raid our territories every few decades for resources, and, he hesitates, biological specimens. "We can help," offers Chen, but Tizara dismisses her with a gesture. "Your single damaged vessel. This isn't a simulation. Human." Chen activates her personal communicator, projecting a holographic display that expands to fill the space between her and the council. The Paradox's schematics appear, now with previously hidden systems revealed in detailed cutaways. "You've been wondering why our ship contains so many illogical design elements." Chen begins, her voice cutting through the panic. "The truth is, Earth has been preparing for exactly this scenario. Since we first detected transmissions of the previous Ravager incursion 70 Earth years ago." The chamber falls silent as the implications register. Tizara's crystalline structure sharpens with sudden focus. "Explain." "Our deep space monitoring stations detected Ravager communications during their last raid. We couldn't understand the language, but the energy signatures and patterns were unmistakable. Predatory, organized, and technologically advanced." Chen manipulates the hologram, highlighting specific systems throughout the Paradox. "Everything about our ship that confused your engineers was designed with a singular purpose: asymmetric warfare against technologically superior opponents." Engineer Castevall pushes through the crowd, his analysis tablet displaying rapidly scrolling data. "She's right. The Paradox's systems are specifically calibrated to exploit quantum resonance patterns identical to Ravager energy signatures. Their weapons would actually feed power to these collection nodes." "The Void Gap trial," continues Chen relentlessly, was a proof of concept for our energy harvesting technology. The combat simulation demonstrated our tactical adaptability. The bombardment test confirmed our distributive defense grid could withstand concentrated energy attacks. Security Minister Dravnok's posture shifts from dismissive to calculating. You're claiming your vessel was specifically designed to counter Ravager technology. How could you know their specifications without contact? We didn't need specifications, Chen replies. We analyzed their energy signatures and working backward to derive their technological principles. It's how we developed our own interstellar technology, reverse engineering from intercepted transmissions. The tactical displays throughout the chamber update with real-time information on the approaching Ravager fleet. Estimated arrival time: 3 hours. If what you say is true, Tizara says slowly, then your vessel might indeed prove useful in the defense. Not just useful, Chen corrects. Essential. But there's a condition. The council members exchange glances, unaccustomed to conditions from non-members during a crisis. We'll need command authority over your defense fleet. Your conventional tactics won't work against them. They're designed to counter standard Concord approaches. We need to implement our asymmetric strategy across all available vessels. The demand is unprecedented. Several councilors object vocally, but Dravnok, the most hostile to humanity previously, silences them with a slashing gesture. The human ship passed the triumvirate trials, he reminds them. Our protocols are clear. They've earned the right to be heard. He turns to Chen. What do you propose, Captain? Chen's holographic display shifts to a tactical overview showing the Concord fleet positions and the approaching Ravager vessels. First, we divide your fleet into 3 uneven groups. Then we give the Ravagers exactly what they don't expect: a prey that bites back using their own strength against them. The Concord Command Center hums with controlled tension as tactical displays track the approaching Ravager fleet. 15 vessels, each a nightmare of organic metallic fusion that defies conventional engineering principles, move in perfect coordination toward the Helios Gateway. Captain Chen stands at the central holographic projector, surrounding Concord officers watching with a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. Her battle plan, displayed in 3-dimensional clarity, violates every established principle of Concord space warfare. Divide your fleet into 3 uneven groups, she instructs, manipulating the hologram. The largest contingent will appear to retreat in disarray, drawing their flanking elements away from their center. The second group will execute these precise but seemingly random maneuvers near the Cirrus asteroid field, creating the impression of a force in confusion. Admirals Qatar, freshly arrived from the Eternal Judgment, objects vehemently. This is madness. You're creating artificial weak points throughout our defensive line. Exactly, Chen replies with a grim smile. We're giving them obvious targets that aren't actually vulnerable. Humans call it a honeypot strategy. And the third group, asks Dravnok, who has unexpectedly become humanity's strongest advocate. Chen zooms the hologram to the Paradox and a small escort of Concord vessels. We'll lead a direct assault on their command ship. The Paradox's systems are specifically designed to counter their technology. And if I'm right, they've never encountered anything like our approach before. They won't know how to respond. The plan meets fierce resistance from Concord military leadership, but with the Ravagers less than an hour away and conventional strategies having failed repeatedly in the past, Supreme Counselor Tizara makes the unprecedented decision. Implement Captain Chen's strategy. All vessels reconfigure according to human tactical parameters. As the Ravager fleet enters the outer defense perimeter, the battle commences. The Paradox, hastily repaired but still bearing scars from its trials, leads a small strike force directly toward the massive Ravager command ship. Chen stands on the bridge, the crew executing her orders with practiced precision. Defensive posture alpha. Activate collection grids. All power to forward shields, but ensure they're modulated to fail in sequence, not simultaneously. What follows astonishes even the human crew. The Paradox's reactor, pushed beyond safety limits, channels power in ways its Earthbound designers theorized but couldn't fully test. When Ravager energy weapons connect with the hull, they don't cause expected damage. Instead, the impact points glow with transferred energy that feeds directly into the ship's systems. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reports from engineering, voice tight with controlled excitement. "Captain, the absorption matrices are operating at 342% of rated capacity. Their weapons are actually charging our systems faster than they can drain them." The paradox is primitive communication systems, using quantum-entangled particles instead of the standard subspace frequencies employed by both Concorde and Ravager vessels, prove completely immune to jamming techniques that cripple conventional vessels. Chen's tactical instructions flow uninterrupted to the scattered Concorde fleet, coordinating movements that appear chaotic but form a carefully orchestrated trap. The battle reaches its climax when the Paradox, systems straining but still operational, executes a maneuver deemed mathematically impossible by Concorde navigation computers. It briefly vanishes from sensors, having used its overtaxed engines to create a localized space-time distortion. When it reappears, it's inside the Ravager flagship's shield perimeter, having essentially phased through defenses designed to repel conventional attacks. "All power to primary weapons," orders Chen. "Target their central power distribution nodes." The resulting point-blank assault from the Paradox's main weapons, now supercharged by absorbed Ravager energy, tears through the enemy vessel's internal systems. The Ravager flagship, a vessel that has terrorized the Concorde for centuries, begins to break apart from within. With their command structure disrupted and facing unexpected resistance from weapons that grow stronger with each attack, the Ravager fleet's perfect coordination falters. For the first time in recorded history, the predatory species withdraws in disarray. In the aftermath, as repair crews swarm over the heavily damaged but triumphant Paradox, Supreme Counselor Tizara convenes an emergency council session. Their verdict is unanimous. Humanity is not only accepted into the galactic community, but offered an unprecedented alliance. The Concorde requests that humans redesign their entire defense fleet. Engineer Kistval, newly appointed to head a joint Human-Concorde technological exchange program, summarizes the paradigm shift sweeping through galactic civilization. "For millennia, we pursued perfection, flawless systems that cannot fail. Humans showed us that embracing controlled failure, adaptability, and seemingly illogical combinations creates something greater than perfection: resilience." Captain Chen, accepting the Concorde's highest military honor, delivers a response that enters interstellar historical records. The universe doesn't reward those who follow its rules perfectly. It rewards those who learn enough of the rules to know exactly which ones can be broken and how to use the resulting possibilities. As the ceremony concludes, a junior Concorde officer approaches with alarming new long-range scans. The Ravagers appear to be regrouping with an even larger fleet. Chen studies the data and smiles, activating her communicator. "Tell Earth to launch the Prometheus-class vessels," she says calmly. "It's time for Phase 2.